I got to make sure I'm not too hot take on this, but all right, welcome back. Week 9, biggest kind of week as we got going in here right before we start the taper. And so, how are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. As of when we're recording this now, feeling great. I think last week I was feeling pretty solid too, but yeah, I think foreshadowing for next week, I'm feeling even better. So that's a good
Yeah,
sign.
fair enough. And I wanted to ask you, you made a post yesterday or today about some of the consistency you've had in this build since like June. So if you've got those numbers handy, like tell everybody how many weeks above what volume, and like I know we're going through this build in terms of what we're doing week by week. Uh, you and I have talked about that. The builds are really building off each other's builds and the last things you've done. So if you want, fill in what this kind of almost 6 month span at this point has been.
Yeah, I think I had some comment on that post, and they were like, "Oh wow, like what an epic build," or something like that, which very kind of them. But I think more so like I think we worked on a particular system for double threshold and threshold for a couple halves. Then we did that 10K block, and so I think we needed to come back to volume to some extent at one point. Now, I think the timing was for a short bit. We thought that maybe there was a shot that I'd get into Chicago, and so building back some of that mileage was sort of in accordance with that. It was also timed right after, I guess, my last 10K, and then I went to the Philippines for a work trip, and then came back from that. So I guess like that was sort of the timing of when that started of building up mileage again. So I guess that's why we sort of extended that. But I really enjoyed that summer period. I think that was quite interesting as a, I don't know, I call it a maintenance phase. That you might call it something different. But I think I just went back quickly for some stats because I think people like, I've realized athletes like seeing some of the numbers. But since June 30th, I think it's like 14 weeks above 200K. So basically, there's a couple weeks that was like 197, 196. So I actually didn't count those. But 14 weeks above 200K, the peak week being 211, which is like Monday to Sunday. Biggest 7-day mileage spread, I think, was 219K if you just like shift the week slightly in one way or the other. I just remember seeing that. And then I guess 2 half marathons, and then I guess like 6 of the last past weeks, hitting the sauna at least twice a week. And that's also from a heat training standpoint, that's excluding time on treadmill, which, what would we call that? Intra heat training, intra workout heat training. I almost think might be more effective. But that's some of the overall stats of what got us here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it's really cool to see that because one of the things we always talk about is how consistency compounds, and you've had a massively consistent year, even going back to Houston half, the half you ran in upstate New York, or sorry, not upstate New York, New York, and then the 10K build. It's just been this smooth go. And I think from a confidence perspective, you can look at it and go, there's like this kind of hierarchy to build confidence. So first thing, it's consistency. You got to be consistent in what you do, and that builds competency. And then once you have competency, you can start to be confident, right? And I think that's where, as we've talked through some of these workouts and you've achieved them, you're just like, I just keep chugging along. It's like what I do. It just keeps working, and I'm doing this because you're confident, because you've built that underlying kind of consistency, obviously, and then competency. So what do you think about that in terms of how you're feeling going into the last 3.5 weeks, give or take?
Yeah, no, I think I was sort of thinking about this maybe the other day. It was like even on I felt like even on the worst day, I know I can show up, and I think we talked about that previously for one of those 10Ks that I had to do. But even on the worst day, I'm tired, or like recovery doesn't go well, or whether it's a workout or race, I know I can push through and at least have like a standard level of sort of performance or hit certain pace. I think even last year, like we would do, I don't know, 60 minutes at marathon pace, or even if it was like broken up or whatever. And I was like, I just don't know. I think I typically, in general, I run scared. Like I run with this feeling like I'm like likely I'm doubting myself, and that likely it's going to go wrong, which is not great. But I'd say last year was like I was genuinely doubting. Like I don't know, I'll go out at like 3:15, 3:17 pace for this workout, and maybe I'll hold it, maybe I'll die. And then now I think this year it's just like I know that even if I go out a bit hot, I can adjust, and my body's strong enough and durable enough to like really hold that pace and also just recover tomorrow. I think even before like different races, it was like I didn't know, even after Houston, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to feel tomorrow. Whereas like, we've done a half, and, I've rolled off of it, and just, we've been back into training almost the same mileage the next day. So, yeah, it's just an interesting, just to see the development. And then, I guess like from a confidence perspective, just knowing I can rely on myself, I guess is the point.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe we can answer kind of a question you had from somebody listening with this topic. And so the reason why we do a lot of this volume is to actually recover faster between bouts, right? So you recover faster, you come out of better. Obviously, there's the physiological, gains that you need from an aerobic development standpoint. But we know that those who do more volume tend to respond quicker. So even like Elena did the 103K FKT thing a couple days ago now. And because she does relatively high volume, she recovers super well. Like she did 103K, never done anything like that before, and she ran 2 days later. Whereas most people, like I'd be destroyed personally because I don't run enough volume. But and so that's the same thing for you. And so when you start to experience that, you can start to trust that you can push hard because you're not then thinking, oh, is this going to mess up my consistency? Or, oh, what am I going to feel like tomorrow if I do this? Because you've got that like baked in trust that you can actually go and crush it because you're going to recover the next day. And I find that's a really cool headspace for everybody, but elites in particular, where you start to trust it week over week over week. And then you go, I just don't have bad workouts because I'm so aerobically strong, really, that it's really hard to send you off kilter unless it's an outside piece, right? Yeah. And I think, maybe actually, why don't you give me the question that one of your guys had in talking about this, and we can talk through it.
Yeah. Well, I think just to address that, I think, I have like a lot of trust in you. And so I'm like, I know that going into each week, like I actually don't even spend that much time looking at the workout. Like sometimes I'll be literally starting to run and pulling out my phone and being like, what did Final Surge say? But I have a lot of trust in the fact that I know it's going to be the calculated right amount. We're not going to like suddenly have lost like 20% of mileage or do anything crazy. And I know it will work. Right. And that you factor in how much intensity, each week is baking in. So I think that's a big point. And then, that can also allow me to chill out and build confidence from that. Yeah. So I think, what I see a lot of younger athletes do, and guys in particular with an ego, is like they see like they're like I don't know, it's 100 miles or like 110 or 120 miles, and they're not trying to shoot, like they're not executing the training for the benefits of training. They're executing to manufacture hitting that number. And then things are going out of whack, like they're running a bunch of mileage, but it's not reflective of what they actually need in training. And so I guess I had an athlete who he was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm just like super fit right now, or like maybe like I just don't have the fatigue in my legs, but like I'm hitting way faster times in my workouts. And I was like, well, I think it could be a bit of both. And so I guess like my question to you is like, how do you know like how much to raise that mileage for the athlete while still having the right amount of like intensity within each week for them?
Yeah, I'll answer that in a sec, but you brought up a really interesting point about, guys in particular. It does tend to be more of a guy problem. I need to hit 100 miles or I got to do this. And so I actually, like when I do your programming, I have no clue what your volume is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be 200, 195, 210. Like I don't count it in kilometers. I just look at it in terms of total time. Yeah. And I think when we get obsessive or we start plotting that I need to hit X amount of distance, you actually screw up the training week, because what will happen is, like, let's say on a more normative non-marathon training week where I'm going to have a Tuesday session, a Friday session, and a Sunday long run, right? you'll decide by Thursday you're not going to have enough volume because you missed it or work or something happened, right? So then you crank up Thursday just to make up for the missed volume, which then gives you way too much fatigue going into the next workout. So then you bomb that workout, and or that 48-hour span is too hard. So then you're under recovered for Saturday and Sunday, and then you end up messing that up, and then you feel bad on Sunday that you bombed it. So you go to attack the Tuesday tempo harder, right? And all of a sudden you've got these 5 or 6 weeks where you haven't really done a good workout, all because you're like fixated on this number that you need to get. Because when we program for like development, you want the ebbs and flows of the fatigue to be appropriate in the system. Like you want to be tired for tempo and interval pace sessions, but not too tired, right? I know that's not exact, but that's where like the art of working with an athlete comes in. I know roughly how much that person can handle and how much fatigue they should have going into that workout. And so that leads me to the question about like how to know when you should raise volume. So if we move this over to the marathon conversation, I would posit the idea that there's what I would call a marathon hierarchy. And so it's like total aerobic volume, marathon pace work, tempo pace work, interval pace work. So that would be the like triangle, the pyramid, right? And so I think that you should raise volume pending durability, years in the sport, etc., right? To the point, and hopefully just before, athletes can't hit workout paces. So right. If you're an athlete who thinks I need to run a bunch of volume, yeah, you do need to run more to get better. I'm not going to lie. Like that's part of the game. But if you can't hit workouts, you're doing one of two things wrong. You have too much volume or you're running your volume too hard. And so if you look at like the Africans or a lot of the elite marathoners, they will run their easy volume proportionally much slower than others do. So your marathon pace per mile is what? 5-ish, give or take? I know it is in Ks, but 5-ish, right? And you routinely run your easy pace high 7s to 8s, right? So you've got roughly, let's just call it a 3-minute gap between marathon pace and easy pace. That's what actually allows you to run a buttload of volume, right? And recover and hit workouts. Whereas most marathoners, especially like age groups or younger people, right? They drive the easy run pace to get the volume that they want to get to at the expense of the workouts. The second mistake that I kind of see people do with that is they go, I want to run X time for the marathon. So they'll say 2:30 or 3 hours, whatever it might be. And they then reverse engineer paces based on that. So they train for what they want to race versus train for the fitness they're in. And so obviously there's like a little bit you have to mess with that. And you do have to functionally overreach, but I find most people like just overreach, not functionally. And so what happens then is they end up getting injured or they run an M-pace session that's way too fast. And a lot of people don't do long, straight M-pace sessions. So they never find out until 10 to 15 miles on race day that pace was too hot. And then they implode. And then they think, well, there's something wrong with me or I need to run more volume. And it's like, you do, but you've got the recipe messed up, right? So I can't remember the quote, but it's like, it's basically like, if you put flour, eggs, milk, and chocolate chips into a bowl and you mix it together, it can be a cake. But if you screw up the recipe, it can taste really bad, right? So the same ingredients can make something beautiful and brilliant, or it can make something horrible and tasteless, right? So like the devil's in the details. And so I think for athletes who are trying to develop, what you want to do is raise the volume. But generally, as you raise the volume, I would recommend athletes slow down the effort and the pace for raising that volume. So that way they can still go into workouts with the right amount of fatigue and not overreaching. Because, this another piece to this would be like injury considerations. So if you're getting injured, you can think of an injury in its simplest sense as this. Your tissue has a tolerance and you exceeded it. That's an injury, right? Yeah. Every tissue has a tolerance and load. And that's why easy running is so helpful because it builds your tissue tolerance to load. And so if you go and you crank it or you're way too tired from running your easy days and then you crank a workout and you get an injury, it's like your tissue just couldn't handle that. So that's where you have to back off. And so that's why for most people, I shy away from a lot of the intensity-based stuff in marathons, especially early in their career, because they don't have that known quantity of being able to handle volume and intensity. And if you look at the requisite, like marathon hierarchy, the biggest bang for your buck all around is going to be easy running. And so I think that's, in a nutshell or in a round way, where a lot of people mess up the development early on in the marathon.
Yeah, or just running in general. I think
running in general. Yeah.
The other one I see is just like people just like skipping a bunch of runs and then jumping into it jumping into a workout and like creating their own workout that was way too intense, but they're like, wow, I'm just like so fit. It's like, well, you rested the last like 3 days and didn't run. And you didn't actually prove that you could consistently run, a few weeks of X mileage, and so it's like, the mileage plus the workout is both hand in hand what builds fitness over time. So yeah.
Absolutely. I'll give you another hot take because I keep getting egged on to talk about this, so I'm going to do it here. When you miss a run, it's gone. We don't make up.
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
And so I got to make sure I'm not too hot take on this, but if that principle that a lot of people think is like, oh, I missed Tuesday, I'll just add it to Wednesday, was true and it worked, then we would just pick one day. We would pick Sunday as an example, and we go, I'm supposed to run 9 hours this week. I'm just going to run for 9 hours. Because if I can just make it up and put it wherever I want and it all works out, then why don't you just do it all in one day? Save yourself the hassle of waking up at 5:30 in the morning before work.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work that way. Nobody would ever do that. And so I love the desire to run more and do it and such. But when you add it, right, we go back to tissue tolerance, right? It's like you probably don't have the tissue tolerance to run like 100-minute run the day before a workout and recover well and not get injured. And the other thing that I go back to all the time is, I know I said this to you earlier on in your career, it's like just because you can doesn't mean you should. Because you might escape it today, but you're probably not going to escape it long term.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I saw that, like that 1 7-day period, I was like, oh, like, I think how good I feel now and during that week, I was like, I think there's more capacity to grow volume. But like, again, doesn't mean we should. And I guess before
it doesn't mean we need to this build either, right? Like we're already out from an average perspective higher than in previous builds.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, before we jump into the workouts, I had a coach my first year when I was at UW, and his name was Jason Drake, and he had all these like rules, like kind of like these hot take rules like that. He took them from like Mark Wetmore and other people too. And the rule was like that killed like so many first year freshmen. It was like if you're not healthy enough, or like you're like switching an easy run for a cross training day the day before a workout day, you're not allowed to work out on the workout day. And that was just like mentally like so the most frustrating rule for people. So yeah.
It's the difference between ego pacing and reality pacing. Like a lot of people like want to run a pace, especially now. Like Strava wasn't a thing your first year, I don't think, or it was just barely.
No. Like first year university, like no.
Yeah. But now it is, right? So a lot of people are like ego runners. I was talking to a High Rocks person that I coach, and I'm getting them to slow down their easy runs, and they were doing the comparison trap, and I was like, well, it's one, I don't think we should compare, but two, if you're going to compare, at least compare to people who are doing it the right friggin' way. Like, don't compare to a bad data set. Like that's gonna mess you up. But yeah, no, it's a super interesting topic. I mean, we could do hot takes all day because that would be fun. But I don't know, maybe that's what people want. We'll find out. But check the retention on this afterwards. But as we shift to training, let us know if you want us to do hot takes. We can do that. But as we go into training last week, so same volume across the board, really, right? Did not change much. I know we're roughly 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. This is goal race day, and so for some people we might start tapering down. But because you've got a couple builds under your belt, and we're pretty confident you can handle a 2.5-2 week taper. For this, we just kept the volume pretty much the same across the board. Because the workout on Sunday was fairly significant, as we talked about in the last episode, we pushed that workout to Thursday, which is probably another interesting piece to talk about. Workouts don't have to be on static days. We can move them along the recovery spectrum. We can also use another hot take, like it's not always Tuesday tempo. But if you move them along the week, you can control for that recovery. So if I know that you're going to come out of a pretty hard session, we might want 1 or 2 days just to get the blood flowing, move things out a little bit, maybe build up a little bit of fatigue going to the next workout. We just move the workout. So pretty simple. So for this one, we did 8x800 on 5K on 75 seconds recovery. So a bit less than you might see for normative age groupers. But when I program this for you, I know that 800 CU is too low kind of thing. So you don't need a lot of recovery from a work to rest ratio perspective. So that's what I'm looking at for you. An age grouper, I might give 90 seconds to 2 minutes, even depending on their pace. But do you want to walk us through this one, how it felt? You got a rare outside workout this time of year.
Yeah, that might be the last outside workout for a while. Yeah, it wasn't bad. Let's see. I'd say yeah, quite a bit of wind. That's my sandbag there, but actually no, it was pretty windy.
It's horrible up here.
I guess like yeah, sometimes I make certain rules like where I'm like okay, if it's over 20-kilometer winds, maybe I'll hit the treadmill. But I was like, it's 5K work. It's not even that big a workout. So I wanted to hit it outside, and I knew that this might be the last opportunity. But I'd say most of them were like, 250, 252. There was a few that were higher there. But yeah, I think it was.
You're going
it was
back
why,
and forth on the canal, right? So you're getting headwind, tailwind. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, honestly, it was just fun. Mentally, it just took some time to wake up. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I think speaking to that recovery element, coming off the previous Sunday, like I felt great on Monday and Tuesday. And I was like, oh, I feel like $1,000,000, especially because that workout went well. And then I think the Wednesday actually, I didn't feel as great. And I was like, oh, like this is definitely why, because like otherwise I would have been feeling this kind of feeling on the workout day. So yeah, it definitely was smart to do that.
Yeah, and it was a good session. I mean, one of the other reasons why I bumped it an extra day too was the last time we hit 5K pace was a little bit of a rougher session, right? So it was that 5K like top up, that tag on the top. And so I wanted to just give you a little bit of space to draw a little bit of confidence. So looking at the art of coaching here is like we're in the last 4 weeks, so we want things to be mentally firing on all cylinders, feeling good, feeling confident. And so it's not like we're giving you an easier workout or cheating it or anything, but just giving you the space to be successful, I suppose. Because it would be easy to think, oh crap, we got like 4 weeks left. Let's squeeze a little bit extra in and maybe do a Tuesday session, a Friday session, and maybe a little bit something in the long run. But I think that was a better go for you, especially given that we were going to do a longer session on the Sunday, longer-ish. But I also wanted you to get some of that like neural and pep and max VO2 because we're getting into that like sharpening the spear phase here. And so that was kind of the thought behind that. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think I definitely appreciated that. I think I was talking to this with an athlete. I said to him, I have the memory of a goldfish in the fact that I kind of have like I've talked about before, like these guiding principles of like execute the effort, be smart, run by effort, blah blah blah. But if I have a bad workout, or if I have I think more so if I have a tough workout, my brain literally forgets the next day that it was like a tough workout. I'm like, all right, like we gotta do more. And so that's maybe a superpower and a deficit at the same time. Yeah. So actually, like you're bringing that up, but I've totally forgotten about the last 8x800 or whatever.
I will take your goldfish memory. It's actually something I talk about in my clinical practice all the time. Is having that goldfish type memory, where it's like no last workout is deterministic of a next workout, and if it was, then we would just it would be singly relegated to the first workout we ever did and how it went. And it's like that doesn't work that way, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, so if you look at this week, this was kind of the last big straight M-pace session, I would say, for you. We might do a little bit. We'll see what we kind of need in the last couple of weeks and where your head's at and how you're feeling. But unfortunately, nice big treadmill session here for you. And so, we've only got, this is obviously incorrect in terms of how this looks. So I'm going to close this out and you can break down how that session went for you.
Yeah, no, it was good. So I think we have done 70 minutes at marathon pace, kind of earlier in the build or pre-build, and that went well. And then I think I've done one other one on the treadmill, but I did 60 minutes of running outside, quick change inside, like as quick as I can, and then jumping on the treadmill with bottles and stuff. And then this one was like snowing like crazy, and so I was doing the 45-minute easy before on the treadmill, and I was like already sweating a bunch. So I was like, oh man, this is gonna be really hot. We're gonna cook the goose for sure. And it's so tough because like I find in the heat, like at least for me, maybe just where I'm at in terms of fitness, like sometimes the heat plays tricks on your brain too. So I'm like, oh, okay, am I getting the most out of myself aerobically? Mentally, like you can feel your brain just slowly dying across the workout. So like the mental gains on that workout were insane, but I think I went from 311s to 309s. With the heat factor, genuinely, I would give myself like 3 to 4 seconds per K. That was just so like the amount of sweat was insane. I can't believe this one guy jumped right beside me right towards the end. I was like, there's all these treadmills, dude. Like, just go over there. I don't even want to think about my sweat hitting you while I'm doing this workout.
This won't be a confidence booster for you, sir. It will not. Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think that was exactly what I needed from like the longer M session as like kind of the connective tissue. So it was good.
Yeah, I think the other interesting thing about treadmill stuff, and I know we've gone back and forth on this. This is technically your first marathon that has a winter component to the build, and I remember you had suggested one last year for the we'll call it spring, even though it's still winter up here. But and I was like, nah, like it's really hard to do a winter build because you're doing this stuff. Now, I still agree with that statement, but there are some immense benefits I think that you get from doing some of these sessions, and I think. I mean, I don't know Jakob, but I'm sure if you asked him, like doing a lot of stuff on the treadmill where you just locked in it, you're almost forced to do it, right? I guess obviously you could step off, but you almost lock in the pace and you just go, right? And so you have to just sit there. You just have to do it. Versus outside, it's like, well, I can look around, I can get distracted, I can, see other people, I can do these things, right? Versus on the treadmill, it's just like you and a belt, like just roll, right? And so I do think there's a mental stimulus component that, for you looking ahead to the marathon project, thinking about 90 to 100 minutes in where you're like, oh yeah, this is kind of what it was like on the treadmill where I was just grinding away for like the last 30 minutes of that. So I think that's pretty beneficial, but it'll be interesting to see how you feel kind of coming into this next week, which we'll pick up and record next week, coming off that, because I do think sometimes runners feel a little bit better, like less beat up coming off the treadmill too for big sessions compared to being out on the road. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's I think if you're using it right, I think you can get just as much out of yourself. Some in certain instances, maybe more. I think I was listening to a podcast. There's a guy, I think he's an Aussie guy. He switched from the bike to the road. He recently ran like 101.
Oh yeah, that crazy guy. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was describing that too, like how he did a bunch of his like key sessions on the treadmill. Andreas Almgren, I know he's done a bunch. I think there's a lot of guys like that who've done that. And so if you're running at 1.0 incline, it's more resistance. You got to work your quads and glutes a bit more. There's the heat training factor, but like that 1.0 incline, it's like I don't think that's the same impact as if you were running flat on ground. So there's a bit of that element too. And then also I think I train solo, and so if I put the treadmill at X pace and I don't touch the down arrow, it holds me at that pace, right? So, I don't go with a bike or another guy. So that also helps from like a mental standpoint to get amped up. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and it'll be fun to see. Like I think you're firing on all cylinders right now. I think we get to sharpen up a lot of the fun stuff right now, and I don't know about you. I enjoy the last couple of weeks of a marathon build, both when I was doing it and coaching it, because I find you get to see or start to see some of the fruits of your labor for the last like 8-10 weeks, and you get a little bit of like giddy excitement when you start to see how easy things are feeling and fun are going. I don't know, maybe you at your level you don't feel that, but that's how I felt when I was a washed up has-been and now as a coach. But what do you feel?
Yeah, no, this week has been good, and I think last week too. I think this time, like this period in the build with this many weeks to go, I did not feel as great as I do now. So it was definitely a very different feeling. And so I think every build is unique. And but yeah, currently things are good. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Last time we talked about fueling and shoes. Fueling is still going well. Just so everybody knows, you're still practicing that. We were talking about bottles because for the elites, the marathon project course is a little bit different. On a traditional course, you get bottles roughly every 5K, depending on the course, but it's roughly every 5K, right? But this time it's every, what, 4.2 or 4.6 miles? What is it?
Yeah, I think, 4.26 or something like that.
2.6, that's what it is, yeah. And so just breaking down that kind of carbs per bottle, because we're still trying to target that 100 grams, get the calf gel and all that kind of stuff. But everything seems to be in line there. We're ready in that regard. You got shoes ready. Do you know what you're wearing gear-wise yet?
No, I've been wearing like the same singlet for ages. I should probably get something new, but TBD. Yeah, I'll say that.
All right, we'll have to put it out before so people can follow along.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. I had a couple people message me like, oh, how do I get a Flow Track account? And I was like, I don't know. That's for you to know and me to find out.
Yeah. Sign up on FlowTrack. I will be there, and we will probably story update per lap on the Fast and Free account on Insta. So
That'd be cool. That'd be very cool.
And then we're gonna bring the GoPro so we can get some footage for you.
Oh, interesting. Wow, that's gonna be a whole production.
Yeah, me with 2 hands every time you go around a lap.
Well, Elena's there too.
Yeah, that's true. I figured it out for her. Like for her FKT, I had the phone for Instagram story. I'm horrible at social media. Like people should know this. If you see my stuff, it's not me, it's Elena. And so I was like doing stories for her on one phone and like holding the GoPro on the other, trying to do it. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I had to get her to coach me on how to set up your lines with words and stuff. I'm useless at this stuff. So I stick to my skill set, which is technical execution, not social media. So, but yes, we will have that there for you. So if listeners want to follow along, I will do live story updates where I tag you and no, actually, Elena will. You're right. I'm not going to do it. Elena will do it, so.
Yeah. Well, I think the listeners out there will appreciate that.
Yeah. Besides, FlowTrack's expensive now.
I don't even know what it is. So yeah.
Good time. So there you go. Cool. All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. We'll pick up for next week, which will have your last big session, and then we're into full on Taper Town, and we can talk about what that feels like.
Yeah. No, that'll be good.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks a lot, and thanks everybody for listening.
See ya.